Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Mohammed again. So, what we're going to be doing in this section, this is our second section. We're going to actually go ahead and start preparing for our lab environment. So, what we're going to do is we're going to download VMware Player and the ISOs. That's part of our section. So, our main concern over here is to have an actual lab environment set up so we could actually work on the virtual machines themselves. So the first thing I want to do is I want to introduce like what kind of options I could be actually using to virtualize an operating system. One of them is VMware Player. That's the most actually common one. There's also VirtualBox. I actually have it installed. There's also Hyper-V, as you see. VMware Player, I would say, is much faster in terms of performance, in terms of, let's say, not using much resources on the actual system itself. The most recommended one, I would say. Hyper-V, on the other hand, is perfect. That's actually by Microsoft. But the thing is, with Hyper-V, you have to have an actual Pro version to enable it. So you could have Windows 10 Professional or Windows 11 Professional. So if I check here and I type in WinVer, which is for the version of Windows that I'm running, it tells me I'm running Windows 11, but it's the Pro version, as you see. And if I wanted to enable Hyper-V, I would actually have to go to Control Panel and programs and features, as you see, and then turn Windows features on or off. And then from here, I could actually look for Hyper-V and enable it. On the other hand, what we're going to be working with is the actual VMware player. Before I even do that, there's an actual requirement that needs to be done. So if I check under my task manager, I could see the performance, right? And I could actually see my CPU is enabled for virtualization. If it's disabled, you have to get into the IFI, or back in the days, it was called the BIOS and enable the CPU for virtualization so you could actually work with VMware Player. Look how much RAM I have. I actually have 64 gigs of RAM. If you have 16 gigs, that should still be fine. The more, the better, I would say. So let me close this out. So I'm going to get online. What I'm using over here to browse, I actually have the Brave browser. I also have Chrome, I have Firefox, I have the Edge. So there's different browsers that I actually have here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my best friend, which is Google, and just type in download VMware Player. And I'm going to click on it. It should be the first link. And there we go. So this is actually perfect for Windows and Linux. How about if you're running Apple, like a Mac system? Well, the same thing. I would type in here VMware Player download, and I would say for what? For Mac. And it's called the Fusion, by the way. And here it is. This is for Mac. And that's what I would download. VirtualBox, on the other hand, is another option, which is by Oracle. I could say Virtual Box download. And once I click on the link, it's the same one for Windows, Mac, or Linux distributions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the first tab and do it for Windows. I'm going to save it on my desktop. It should not take long, uh, depending on the speed of your internet. So let's give it a few more seconds and I should be able to launch the installation. And after this, I'm going to be preparing to install the ISOs, right? Well, first we have to download them and we'll see where we can actually get those. And everything is free. You don't have to pay for anything. So I'm going to just click on this. So the ISOs are going to be trial versions. The VMware is continue the process over here. It should not take more than a minute or two, I would say. So let's just give it a few seconds. It should be populated automatically. I'm going to accept next. And I like to enhance the keyboard driver. It's going to require us to restart the computer, which is fine. And I'm going to go next. Check for updates. Always be up to date, of course. Leave it as join the VMware community. That's probably what I would always do. All right, and I'm gonna go next and desktop icon, leave that as it is, take the defaults and install. So this should not take long. So my plan is to actually have the VMware player running And of course, on top of that, we're going to be downloading the ISOs so we could set up our virtual environment, right? How I'm going to be explaining to you what the Active Directory is and how does it actually work and how can I simulate like a real life experience as you're actually working in an actual organization. Without virtualization, we can't just actually talk about it. We actually have to do it, right? But that's the perfect about virtualization, which means it will not affect your physical computer, which is another name for that is actually called your host machine. The virtual machines that I'm going to be setting up are actually called guest operating systems, right? So I'm going to have server as a guest, a client as a guest, but my host is running Windows 11 professional, as you see. So this should not take long to run, as you see. So of course, CPU has to be enabled for virtualization, as I mentioned. The more memory that you have, the better it is. So that should be perfect. So what I'm going to do is once this actually finishes, I'm going to actually pause the video and we're going to come back to it. All right. So look, when I see that, so it's asking for a restart. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause the video and we'll actually come back to it. All right. So that's what we're going to be actually doing. We'll come back to this. So we'll see you guys in a few moments.